My official job title is Visual Journalist in Faith and Ethics, and it's specifically for the BBC World Service, which is, of course, a radio station. However, I deal with video, so it's my job to shoot video. I have a travel budget with which to do so. I've been in the role a year, and I have lucked out. I get to travel the world reporting religion. Part of my job is to make sure there's a digital offering for the award-winning World Service radio doc strand Heart and Soul, if you've heard that. Otherwise, I do my own original faith reporting. I find a lot of my stories on online communities like Reddit and Instagram.
I'm now a trustee of Sandford St Martin, but until 2015, I was head of radio current affairs at the BBC. And before that, I was editor of analysis and a producer at File on 4. A lot of the stories that we ended up covering, or the issues that we ended up covering, were related to religion. And of course, there was, a big a rise in Islamist extremism, which led us to set up a separate unit to look into Muslim thought. And we made a lot of programs that were related to religion, faith, and issues about what people believe and why they believe what they believe.
So I've worked at Inform for over 16 years now, and the landscape's changed a lot since then. There wasn't a religion media centre when we started. There was barely the internet where you could find out information when we started. But we were founded in 1988, largely to deal with the kind of crisis in new religions or cultic groups. But over the last 30 years, we've moved towards minority groups in all sorts of non-religious contexts as well.
I'm a senior news editor at CNN. I have spent almost all of my journalistic career as a general assignment reporter, but one with a particular interest in religion. Never managed to get a job as a religion journalist, but have always pitched and worked the religion stories as much as I can. What we were doing, I think, is what a lot of journalists are trying to do across the field in everything. Everybody knows what just happened. If you want to know what just happened, a kid just got beaten up on a bus because he was wearing a kippah, it's all over Twitter the minute that it happens. We now feel like we need to start explaining what's going on.
As an academic, I feel we've got an important public service. Sometimes when we don't feel we have enough information to comment on a breaking news story, just to say what the limits of the known information are. And that's a really important reason for us to kind of raise the level of debate and say this is actually all we know about this group. So there's parallels here. It's too soon to say, and that's a really important thing academics can do.
I think you may still struggle to do is to go beyond the bare facts, to actually explain the why of it as well as the what of it. And I think actually this is kind of part of the issue for religious journalism altogether.
We were aware that there tended to be a spike in anti-Semitic incidents in Europe when there was violence in the Middle East. And then the violence would abate, and then the anti-Semitic incidents in Europe would abate. And in the past 2 or 3 years, we noticed that link had been broken. And the background level of anti-Semitic incidents rose, and it stayed there at a higher level. And we wanted to get to a point of like, well, let's not just do that story again. Let's dig into what's going on here. Why is this happening? And on the face of it, the basic question, do you dislike Jews? You can spin this either way, but only 10% of the 7,000 people we surveyed across Europe said, I have an unfavorable opinion of Jews. 36% said I have a favorable opinion. So we started exploring various anti-Semitic stereotypes. Do you believe that Jews have too much influence on finance and business? And more than a quarter of people said yes. Jews have too much influence in business and finance around the world. In political affairs, about 1 in 5 people said, yeah, Jews have too much influence in political affairs. The media, about the same, 1 in 5. Jews have too much influence in the media. So we're starting to find that these anti-Semitic stereotypes, some of which go back hundreds or thousands of years, still resonate in Europe.
Certainly on social media and the BBC website, the best stories are always case studies. I have actually very rarely this year interviewed an expert my whole remit for my job is to try and find underreported stories. So the whole point is to try and find someone who feels like their voice isn't heard. They have this fascinating story that we should all know about, which is newsworthy.
I think the biggest pressure is this 24-hour news cycle, and when people have to get a story out in the next 4 hours, it's really hard for an academic to respond in time. And so they might try their best to get more information, but it's just really hard. And so I think that these human interest stories, these feature stories, are really important to put the context on the breaking news. And they take longer to develop. But I mean, like the research, good investigative journalism has a lot in common with good academics' research, and they can really have a fruitful dialogue together.